from the Financial Revival Group, and some of you in the local area might know me. I was in the mortgage business for 20 years before we realized that there was a big crisis coming and that there was an awful lot of people that were going to need help, and we kind of moved sideways a little bit in order to be able to help those people. So I started the Financial Revival Group about 4 years ago to help underwater homeowners. And to give you a little bit of an idea how deep this issue is, currently in Western Washington, there are about 350,000 underwater homeowners. That's just in Western Washington. If you figure that most of those families have close to 2 people in them, some are single people, some are married people, we figure there's about 700,000 or so, 650,000 underwater adults in this, just in Western Washington. In the United States, there's about 12 million underwater households, which really equates to about 20 million underwater adults in the United States. Boy, I don't know what just happened with my screen here. Let me go back and fix that. There we go. So about 20 million underwater adults in the United States. To give you an idea of how big this problem is, if you took all the union members in the United States right now, there are about 14.7 million union workers. We're told that there's about 12 million illegal aliens, undocumented workers in this country. So if we look at the underwater homeowner situation, there's more underwater homeowners than there are union workers and undocumented workers in this country. So what we're being told by the media and the quote-unquote experts is, number one, that the economy is in recovery. Do you know that as of June of 2009, the recession was over? A recent poll was just done, and 57% of those polled said that they believe that we've been in recession the entire time. The interesting part of that is that 57% of the American public, again, this is a poll, so there's that plus or minus factor, 57% believe that we're in recession, and none of the economists do, because based on their metrics that they use, we are not in a recession any longer. We're actually in a recovery. Unemployment is down. 6.7% is the current unemployment rate in this country. And if you want to dig deeper into the unemployment numbers, what I would encourage you to do is just to go online and Google U6. That is the unemployment rate that includes part-time workers. And that figure currently is 12.7%. And then if you figure in those people that are not working and are not getting benefits any longer, the unemployment rate is really closer to 18% in this country. Roughly 1 in 5 adult-age people that would like to have a job don't have one. 1 in 5. Currently, there are over 90 million people that are 16 years of age or older who don't work for whatever reason. Now, that also includes the retirees. It also includes those people that are disabled and that kind of stuff, but there's 90 million of them. We're told that the stock market is booming, and for those that do any research at all on this, what you understand is that the Fed is printing roughly $1 trillion a year in creating money out of nothing, and they're dumping that money into the banks and the businesses, which is reflecting in the stock market. So the stock market is being propped up by the creation of huge amounts of money that's being created every year. We're also being told that the housing crisis is over. All of this is really designed to help us to just remain calm, so that we keep paying on the stuff that we're paying on. But based on what you're hearing from the media experts, the question I have for you is, do your instincts tell you this is true? Deep down inside in your guts, are you really believing that what we're being told is accurate? And that's going to depend a lot on kind of what's going on in your world, right? So here's what we believe the story behind this spin is. We've seen housing prices drop for a considerable period of time. Over the last 18 months or so, we've seen some rebounding in housing prices. And the big question is, where is it going next? All kinds of articles. We read a lot of the industry stuff that's coming out, and it's kind of telling the real story. And it's not looking good. Everything is being based at this moment on this new spring buying season, right? It is spring. Most of the country feels the the weather's getting warmer and the things are getting better in terms of being able to get outside more. But the real estate market is really based on what's going on in the spring buying season. It is our belief that we're going to see a spring buying season that is going to be below what is expected. It will be pumped up in the media and by the real estate community itself to make it sound like things are going well, but we don't believe that that's what's going to happen. 42% of the purchases in 2013 in Western Washington were either investors or all cash transactions. So we believe the investors are about done buying. They've spent a great deal of money. They've bought hundreds of thousands of houses across the country, and now they're going to have to deal with the houses that they have, so that's going to create a lull. The problem that we see is that with that large of a percentage going to investors, people that are buying, basically they're buying a commodity for investment purposes. When and if, it's not if, it's when that starts to dwindle down, there's really nobody to fill that gap of houses that the investors are buying. Housing affordability is down. It was much easier to buy a house when houses were more expensive and interest rates were higher. If you look today at because of the fact that mortgage financing is much harder to get, and your income has to be much more well-defined, and the rest of your credit situation has to be much more perfect in order to be able to buy a house, the actual affordability is actually much farther down than it was a few years ago. Another difficulty that we're seeing is that median household income is down. So what that means is that the average household is actually bringing in less money today than it did 2, 3, 5, 7 years ago. So, and with getting mortgage financing, making it that much harder, what we're seeing is that fewer and fewer people are actually able to buy a house. And so what they're doing now is they're creating a scenario where kids are coming out of school, they're unable to find a job, they have student loans, they're moving back home. So now mom and dad have their college age or college graduated kids at home, but also their parents then are also moving in with them. Now that we've seen this in the minority communities for years, now we're actually seeing it in the white communities, where we're seeing grandma and grandpa live with the kids and the grandkids. More and more of that is happening. So it creates a smaller need for housing because we don't really need more houses than we have now. Then you start to look at how many new apartment units are coming online. I know just locally around where we are here, there are really hundreds and hundreds of new apartment units that are coming online. And then we top that off with 24% of homes in Western Washington today are underwater. Those people owe more on their houses than their house is worth. And so what's happening is they're out of the housing market. They have to sit this one out. So with headwinds like this, now I use the word headwinds because headwinds are a term that you're going to hear an awful lot of politicians using. This is kind of the new it word. With headwinds like these, how can housing values increase? It is absolutely not sustainable, and the truth is they can't increase. This is a chart that we show that we created based on information from Zillow and the U.S. Census Bureau that talks about the housing situation in Western Washington. This incorporates the 18 counties in Western Washington. Let's just zero in for a moment on King County. 10% of the homes in King County are currently underwater. 4% of the homes in King County are currently in default. Now, we bring up King County because it is the center of Western Washington, really, and it is the biggest concentration of wealth in the western part of the state. So 10% of these homes are underwater, but interestingly enough, we were able to have a discussion with Seattle Mayor's Ed Murray, the newly elected mayor of the city of Seattle, and he's using a statistic that 28% of the homes in Seattle proper are underwater. 28%. I'm sure he's got better, accurate information than we do because he does studies on this stuff, right? Pierce County, 40% of the homes in Pierce County owe more on their houses than their houses are worth. And in Snohomish County, it's 32%. If we look at this, 86,000 houses in Western Washington are currently not paying their mortgage. 86,000. Pretty big number, and we expect to see those numbers increase. So if you're one of these people that owe more on your house than your house is worth, let's talk a little bit about some ways that you can find out how that works. You get your statement from your mortgage company every month, so you know how much you owe on your house. You can contact a real estate agent who would then be able to do a comparative market analysis to find out what they could actually sell your house for. And they do this without charge because they're looking for business. They're looking to try to list your house to be able to sell it and, of course, make a commission. It's what they do. They're professionals. That's their job. So you can do that. We have another simpler way if you just want to find that out and you're not really interested in selling your house at this point. You can go to our website, myownbailout.com, and just click on there's a big banner there that are you underwater in your house. Just click to find out how to do it. All you need is your address and how much you owe on your property. You can punch that stuff in. We'll instantly send you an email that says, this is where you're at, and so you'll know kind of how to deal with that. So I promised you that we were going to talk about the 5 things you should know about the housing market in 2014. Here they are. Again, like I said earlier, we believe the investors are about done buying. They've been buying up huge numbers of homes, not only in Western Washington, but nationwide over the last 18 months or so. And we believe that they're about done buying. There's things going on in other parts of the world, so these investors that are coming in from other parts of the world, we think that that's going to certainly slow them down as well. So number 2, the consensus is that interest rates are going to go up. We believe that interest rates at some point are going to go up, but truthfully we don't think it's going to be a huge amount of increase. We believe that interest rates today are at about 4.5. We believe that by the end of the year they're going to be at about 5%. So what that's going to do is it's certainly going to kick some people out of that ability to buy a home, but it's not necessarily going to dampen things too much. This is just part of that add-on, more and more things being added on, right? Without new job creation, buyers can't buy houses. You got to have a job to buy a house. Most of the people that we've talked to and most of the research we've done that says if you lose your job or if you have lost your job and if you have gone back to work, chances are you're making less now than you were. If you are a 2-person household with both parties working, statistically you're making less money now than you were making before. And so that's going to put you into a situation where you're going to have to cut back your lifestyle, and it's going to make you a little uncomfortable because you're going to feel like you're going backwards. And if you don't own a house now, are you going to jump into that housing market? Maybe. But if you do, what you're going to do is you're going to be very cautious about doing it. And so we think that there is some pent-up demand from first-time home buyers that were kicked out because they constantly got outbid by the investors. As the investors go away, there is a little bit of a pent-up demand that will take about 6 months to fill, and then those people will be gone too. So this is another one of those headwinds we think that are going to affect the housing market going forward. The biggest issue that we have now is in our country, we have 10,000 baby boomers every day that are retiring. 10,000. So when baby boomers retire, what they want to do, if their houses aren't paid for, they want out, right? They want to lower their costs. They want to eliminate debt. And the biggest challenge that we have here is we are facing something in the United States now that we have not faced ever in our history. And that is a situation where the current generation who is downsizing, not spending money, getting rid of debt, and trying to get rid of their houses, the ones that they owe money on, the baby boomers, this generation is 3 times the size of the generation that's coming up behind us, right? I can say us because I'm one of those baby boomers. So the generation that's coming up behind us is only 1/3 of the size of ours. And in the study of demographics, that generation doesn't come of age to where they really start buying the bigger houses and doing that kind of thing for 10 more years. We do a lot of demographics research here at the Financial Revival Group. And the demographics research basically is a study of what people buy in what stage of their life, right? For example, kids in their 20s, I can call them kids now, kids in their 20s typically spend more money on entertainment and education than anything else. people in their 60s, for example, spend more money on health care, right? And their entertainment dollars are much, much lower than they were when they were in their 40s. People in their 30s and their 40s start to buy their bigger houses, right, because their families are growing, those kinds of things. And what we're seeing is all of this stuff is very chartable. It is all very predictable based on simply age. But what we're seeing now is that these charts are being stretched out because people aren't able to get out of college and immediately go into the workforce. That's what starts it all, and that is the foundation that all of this is built on. So we're seeing some real slowdowns there because these kids coming out of college can't get out and find the kind of jobs that they were expecting to find. So houses are not any more complicated than oranges at the grocery store. Less demand and more supply equals lower prices. That's just the way it works. If you go to the grocery store and they have an entire aisle full of oranges, you'll probably get a free bag of oranges with every $50 purchase. If you go to the grocery store and they have 2 oranges left and they're not going to get any more, they're probably going to auction them off on a Saturday, right? Supply and demand is not complicated, and housing is very much a product of supply and demand. So what we believe going forward is that people that are underwater are going to stay underwater. We believe that people that are close to being underwater will be there shortly. We think that we're going to see about a 30% drop in housing values over the next 2 to 3 years. It will start this year. Has it started already? Perhaps. We're going to see how the spring buying season goes. But it also depends on what kind of government intervention. The government has been intervening now for 7 years, and they have not accomplished really anything in terms of turning this thing around. And we believe that's because they can't. All of the government intervention measures that they've put into place all started with how do we save the banks, right? And so that's where all the money went, and it hasn't worked. So the only way that they're going to fix this issue is to start to really work with the individual homeowners, and truthfully, they're either unwilling or unable to do that. We don't see a problem. We think that we don't see a solution that the government can enact. What we see is the fact that this is going to have to run its course. So if you're underwater, the truth is you're on your own. So we have 7 questions here that we think you should ask yourself before you take any kind of action at all. The first one is, how emotionally attached to your house are you? If you owe more on your house than your house is worth, financially the path is very clear, but what gets in the way of that is emotion. If you were going to make a move, what is it that you would need? How much time would you need? How much money would you need? And what else would you need in order to make some kind of a move? Are you at that stage at this point where you say, no matter what, I'm keeping my house, I don't care what it costs, in terms of emotion or energy or money, I'm staying? Do you want to get out? We talk to people every day that are saying, hold it, I just want out at this point. This has been a bad investment for me. I don't see anything getting better. I just need to get out. Number 5, how much debt do you have? If you're in that scenario where you have an awful lot of outside debt, credit cards, that kind of thing, and you're upside down in your house and you are saying, I don't care what it costs me, I'm going to stay, that is really a recipe for disaster, because you're already in a difficult situation, and we think that you need to kind of think through some other possible solutions. How stable is your income? Is your company that you work for, or the company that you own, or your business that you have, are you stable? Do you feel like making another long-term commitment from this day forward is going to really work out well for you, or is it going to just be more of the same in terms of stress and heartache and anxiety? And then number 7, how much money do you have saved? For most people, when we ask them how much money they have saved, the answer is, well, certainly less than I used to have, right? And if you are in that situation where you're pulling money out of your savings on a regular basis, at some point that's going to go away and that's going to stop. So what we want you to do is to be very clear about what it is that you can live with, what it is that you'd like to see. In a perfect world, we hear every week, in a perfect world, I'd like this house just to be gone. I'd like the debt to be gone. I'd like to be able to move on with my life and do something else, right? If that's the case, after talking through these questions, then it's time for you to take some action, right? So what we want you to do is we want you to learn what's possible. The old world of real estate we think is completely gone and is not going to come back for at least another 10 years, because that's when the generation behind us will start buying houses again, right? So it's still 10 years away. And truthfully, after that 10-year period, we do see housing prices starting to rise again. We just don't believe for a second that we've reached the bottom of this housing market. So if you're underwater in your house, what we want you to understand is all 9 of the options that you have. You need to understand them all so that you can chart a very clear course for you to be able to figure out the best way for you to get from where you are today to where you want to go. You also need the time to think through what it is you're going to do. This is enormous in terms of anything that you've ever dealt with before on a financial level, and you really need some time to think through it. You also need a clear strategy. No matter what it is that you decide to do, you need not only your strategy and plan A, but you need plan B and you need plan C, because in this housing market, we're pretty clear on which way things are going to go, but things can change in an instant. You need to understand the action steps and the timing of those steps. No matter what choice you take in terms of dealing with your underwater house, you need to understand how this works. You also need to seek out someone who can explain all of your different options, right? So you have options that you don't even know about. So now what I want to talk about, though, is who do you turn to for those options? Where do you go for help? So we've created a chart here, and the vertical axis is the level and the different types of services that are available to you. And we're going to show you who you can turn to for help. On the horizontal axis here, the farther to the right, the more expensive it is going to be for you. Now, if you get upside down in your house and you get into that situation where you're in some trouble, you need to make some changes, and you know it, what we're told to do is we're told to call our bank. And interestingly enough, your bank is the most expensive solution for you. Our average client is about $100,000, $125,000 upside down in their house. And what the bank will want you to do is to pay the whole $125,000. And the truth is, you don't have to do that. There are some other ways out. But your bank is the one that you're told to call first. They have basically 3 solutions. Excuse me. Loan modifications, short sales, and a deed in lieu of foreclosure. The thing they won't tell you is that what they'll also do is they'll dual track you, which means they will work through these solutions with you, but they'll also be on the road to foreclosure while they do it. If you call your bank, and for those of you that might have already called your bank, the first thing your bank's going to tell you is, well, you have to be at least 3 months behind on your payments before we can help you. You then have to send us all of your financial information, and you have to write us a letter explaining your hardship. So the first thing that they do is get you over a barrel, because you're 3 months behind and you're never going to catch up after that. They know that. Now, I say never. I should probably backtrack that one just a little bit. Statistically, if you get 3 months behind on your house, you're not going to catch up. There's a very, very infinitesimal small percentage of people that will go back and make those payments up to keep their house, but it's a very small percentage. So then the bank will talk to you about loan modifications. That's just adjusting your monthly payment and the interest rate to try to keep you paying is all it is. The people in the industry know that if you get a loan modification, that within the next 18 months, 60% of the people that get a loan modification will stop making payments again. The second option the bank will talk to you about is a short sale, and that is simply where you put your house up for sale, you sell it for whatever you can get, which won't be enough to pay off the loan. You will be short of the amount necessary to pay off your loan. That's where the term short sale comes from. A deed in lieu of foreclosure is just simply where you sign the house back over to the bank. All of these things take months and months and months to accomplish. And again, while you're working with your bank or your servicer, they will be marching you towards the foreclosure process. Now, legally, they're not supposed to do it. They do it anyway. On the other end of the spectrum, we have housing counselors. Now, housing counselors are nonprofit organizations who get their funding from the banks and from government grants. So the one thing I want to tell you about, we know housing counselors, we know some people that do some really good work. Unfortunately, just by the mere nature of when you get money from somebody else, it always comes with strings. And so since their housing counselors' revenues come from banks and from the government, from government grants, there are strings that come with that. The number one string is to keep you in your house at all costs. So they'll work with you on budgeting, on loan modifications. Washington State Foreclosure Fairness Act has a mediation program. They'll work with you for that. And then they'll also assist you in getting housing cash for keys. Again, I said we do a lot of work with housing counselors. We know a lot of these people, and there's a lot of good people doing this. But if you have anything much in the way of assets, they're not going to be able to help you because their charter is really designed for the lower income people. Next on the list is real estate agents. Real estate agents play a big role in the whole housing market, of course. This is what they do. For real estate agents, if you're going to do a short sale, and of course, if you're underwater in your house, real estate agents only have one solution, short sales. I know a lot of real estate agents, having been in the mortgage business for 20 years, and they're a lot of fine people. Unfortunately, they only have one solution, and it's a one-size-fits-all solution for everybody. And the question I have not been able to get answered yet from my friends in the real estate business is, what percentage of houses that you take on in short sales actually close? The national number is about 1 out of 3. So most of the real estate agents that we talk with will tell you that, oh, my percentage is much higher than that. I'm closing, 70 or 80 or even 90% of the short sale listings that I take, right? So that's what they'll tell us. And the question that I have for them that I've not yet got an answer for is, what are you doing to help the other percentage of those that don't close? Because what happens to those is they go to foreclosure. And we think that if there's a chance that you go to foreclosure, remember earlier we talked about having a plan B and a plan C. We think it's important that you have those plans in place to, before you take step one. We think all that needs to be done. And unfortunately, because of licensing limitations, real estate agents are not allowed to do it. There are some that are out there that are very qualified to do it, but they're simply not allowed. Going back to the other end of the spectrum again, we have attorneys. You pay the attorney's fees, and attorneys will get themselves involved in every aspect of this scenario, whether they understand it or whether they're good at it or whether they're successful at it or not. They will get themselves involved in this. So you can talk to attorneys, and there are attorneys available to do all kinds of different things. They are a little bit more on the expensive range, and so we'll just leave that at that. What we noticed when we started the Financial Revival Group is there is this enormous gap in the middle. And since most of us live in the middle, both in terms of income and in terms of our political beliefs and all that stuff, we live in the middle of the spectrum, and yet we're trying to be forced to the edges. So we created the Financial Revival Group in order to fill this middle. What we do is we really work with clients to be able to create an overall strategy to take you from where you are today to where you want to go. Most everybody else that you're going to deal with in this scenario is going to say, okay, this is my strongest point, so I'm going to pigeonhole as many people as I can into what my strongest point is, without regard for whether that's really in your best interest or not. So we work very much on an individual basis. We hold individual meetings. We've got hundreds of clients, and we don't have any two that are really alike. We'll help you with budgeting. We'll help with loan modifications. We can represent you in the state mediation program. We help with bankruptcy support. We are not attorneys. We do not do bankruptcies. But there's a lot of preparatory work that you can do to come out of a bankruptcy much, much better, and bankruptcy attorneys are not allowed to talk to you about that. If you think you want to sue the banks, we can help you with the litigation preparation. We have a litigating attorney here in our office. We have paralegals in our office here that understand how this stuff works. And every one of our files that we create in working with clients are set up so that if you do later go to litigation, you can save a boatload of money on attorney fees because the file that you can take with you is already prepped for them. Second mortgage negotiations. We have a lot of clients that just say, look, if I could just get rid of my second mortgage, I'm okay. I can keep my house. So we help people in that area too. Strategic foreclosure, which is something that nobody will talk to you about outside of the Financial Revival Group, and that is what happens if you just quit paying on your house and you stay there as long as you possibly can and save your money or use that money to pay off debt. It's a very legitimate foreclosure process. It is a very legitimate option for people to put an awful lot of money back in your pocket and turn this into a pretty positive situation. We help with financial strategies, cash for keys. We have support groups to help people. And, the biggest thing that we find is that anybody that's underwater in their house, believes up front that they're the only one dealing with this. None of their friends, none of their family, nobody else is. It's just me. I'm the dumb one. I'm the one that got caught up in this. And we already know that there are 350,000 underwater households just in Western Washington. So believe me, you are not alone in any part of this. The other side of this is the tax issues. There are potential tax issues in no matter what you do, whether it's a short sale or a deed in lieu of foreclosure or any kind of a principal reduction. There are potential tax issues in there. What we're finding is that most people are not going to have to pay those taxes, but you have to prepare it in advance. If you just get to where you have a tax obligation and you drop it on your tax preparer's desk and say, you can fix this, right? Most of the tax preparers get pretty nervous because it's too late to make any shifts that you need to do. That's all part of what we do to help prep you up front. What we do next is a free 15-minute phone consultation. And the goal of that is to help you to get your immediate questions answered. We schedule these in advance. We discuss your specific circumstances and goals. All we need is your contact information and your address. You get your immediate questions answered. There's no cost. There's no obligation. If you, depending on what it is that you're thinking that you want to accomplish, we've got an entire network of people, real estate agents, mortgage people, financial advisors, attorneys, real estate attorneys, bankruptcy attorneys. We even have housing counselors we can refer you to, and we even have family counselors that we work with because this is a very emotional issue. So what we do is we're going to send you a follow-up email in the next couple of hours. If you're ready to do your 15-minute consultation, you can call us. Our phone number is 425-259-2600, and we'll be able to set that up for you. The biggest thing that I want to tell you now is that people you care about are suffering in silence. They need some help, and they have no idea where to turn because they don't go out to their normal network of family and friends. So they don't want to tell anybody what they're dealing with. And the truth is, if you know anybody that bought a house in the last 10 years, unless they made an enormous down payment, they're probably upside down in their house. If you know anybody that bought a new house in a housing development in the last 7 or 8 years, they're probably upside down too. They may be suffering and you don't even know it. So you can turn them on to us, to our webinars. We do this webinar every week to try to help people know what's coming in the housing market. Truthfully, we're swimming upstream. We've got the government and we have the media. We have very large organizations, the Mortgage Bankers Association, the National Bankers Association, the National Association of Realtors are all trying to convince us that now is the best time to get out and spend what little money we have left to commit ourselves for years and years and years on a commodity, a house, and that things are going to just start from where they used to be and continue to go up. We don't believe any part of that is true, but yet we don't have the millions of dollars necessary to get the word out. So we're doing it through our webinars. So you can refer people to us. You can send them to My Own Bailout website, and they can get signed up for any of our webinars. So any questions, comments, please send those through on the chat, and we will be able to answer those for you. Like I say, we do this webinar every week. We do them on Friday afternoons, alternating Friday afternoons, and alternating Tuesday evenings. So I'm going to send you an email to let you know about when our next webinar is. If you happen to be in Western Washington, it's the most beautiful day that we've had in months and months. So if you're not on this, I understand. If you are, I really want to thank you for taking your time to be a part of this. So again, this is Howard Bono from the Financial Revival Group, and I would encourage you to let's start a discussion about what's going on with housing, and let's help people to make the right decisions for them regardless of what it is. So thank you very much, and I look forward to talking to you again soon. Bye-bye.